back to another episode of Lost in the Farmer's Market, where today we are looking at this gorgeous specimen. And boy, look at those red stems. They're almost purplish red. Not that I'm making splitting hairs here, this is a gorgeous specimen, period. It was the first basil in the 2024 test gardens, and I bought it on a whimsy at a garden store. Yeah, I know, that gets me into so much trouble, doesn't it? You gardeners out there will understand when I say that gets us into so much trouble. So what is this plant, you ask? Well, it's a basil. Its scientific name is Ocimum basilicum Cardinal. I feel like I need a mandolin effect every time I say it like that. But anyway, it's called cardinal basil for short. Cardinal. Now, the name Ocimum is from Greek, okinon, and I'm probably mispronouncing that Greek. I did not note whether or not that's a low O or a high O, but whatever. And it basically means basil. The word basil itself is from basilius, and that roots into Greek from basilicon phyton, meaning royal or kingly plant. And I don't know about you folks out there, but look at this thing. It's good to be the king. But anyway, basil, a mandatory ingredient in any herb garden. If you're growing a garden and you're growing things that you want to put in your face, you need seasonings. It's mandatory. And there's a bunch of them you need: basil, rosemary, sage, thyme, or in my case, I'm more of a seasoning pedantic. So adding on the lemon flavors and rue and what other crazy stuff do I have out here? Pineapple sage and and all that. The Cuban oreganos, all the crazy stuff. But anyway, this plant is native supposedly to tropical Asia and possibly also Africa. Its actual parentage's origins are unclear. Every source I consulted says something slightly different. So I'm covering the range. It's considered a Mediterranean herb, but it may not have originated there. So something worth considering. Its USDA zones are 4 through 10, though it is classified generally as an annual with extreme frost sensitivities. Now, some of you out there will know what happens when you leave unwrapped basil in your fridge, which is 35, 34-ish degrees, somewhere in that range. Well, that's enough to incur frost damage, and then your basil turns into dark, goopy mess because its cells explode, kinda. That's what frost does. It's unfortunate, and that's what plastic wrap and Ziploc bags were made for. Even though they are unsightly and not pretty, they keep your basil, well, perky. Long enough for you to make the fun stuff out of it, anyway. Now, the soil pH preference is 6 to 7. Its exposure is full sun to partial shade. Its height can be 24 inches to 30 inches, so 6 inches shut, no. Yeah, 6 inches shy of 3 feet. Its width can be 14 to 20 inches, which is like, whoa, basil. It is also known as sweet basil, and its primary feature, and pardon me while I fold up the script and just be a plant dork for a minute or two, aside from this lovely crisp lime green looking foliage, or some people say mint green, I don't care, and the beautiful red stalks, which are very striking, is that when it flowers, it has these beautiful bright red bracts that are the same color as the stem, if not brighter red. And so it's like Siam Thai Queen, Thai basil, except fancier. Except the difference is you can eat the full flowers, you can eat the foliage, the whole plant is useful. So it's a win-win for you, even if it does go to seed and try to bloom or whatever. But above and beyond that, look at the branching it's doing without me. I did not nip the top, and look at this aggressive branching structure. Normally, you'd have to nip the central tip of a basil, the central leader, which carries all the hormones, which causes the side tips to go, look at me, I'm the central leader now. And then they fight for dominance, sort of. And they don't even realize they're coming off the same stem, but whatever. Well, this one doesn't really need it. Yes, it has a central leader, but look at all this side branching. Very convenient for you and me. A basil that auto branches without nipping is great. And by the way, I just want to point out, this basil smells amazing. So that means it tastes great. I haven't made pesto yet because it's not quite big enough, but soon. soon. And yeah. Now, just to point out about growing basil, because I have to cover this just about every time I do a basil. Basils do best when they have adequate air circulation. If they're too close to stuff, they'll start to get foliar diseases from drip from other plants. So you notice this one's on an end cap. It's decorative. It's the prickly pear cactus behind it is not in competition. There's no problems here. On a grow tray where the small pots are next to each other, they'll start to get foliar diseases as we get into the wetter portion of the year, and they'll look gross and they'll taste just not right, and they won't be pretty. So space is key. Secondly, if you'll notice, in the pot here, I have this stuff. These are spent peat pots that I've shredded up and I use as a mulch for pots, in lieu of wood mulch, which can attract termites and other things. It's still made of lignin and it does slightly, minusculely acidify the soil. Not enough to make a difference at the end of the day, but they also help to retain moisture, prevent weeds, and when it's dry, it's been raining a lot, they are a light brown color that almost looks like cypress mulch or cedar, uncolored cedar mulch. So pretty and useful, and also not throwing a waste product from my nursery out in the compost or whatever, because those things do take some time to break down into nothing. So this is pre-digesting it, so to speak. Beyond that, normal potting soil in the pot, and the key detail for watering basils is to water them when they're dry. Don't let them fully collapse wilt. They might do the whole dramatic wilt in the middle of the afternoon, but check your soil to make sure it's moist. Water thoroughly, and then step back for until it's necessary again. You want to do deep and infrequent waterings to encourage the roots to go as deep into the soil as possible. That encourages growth, and also at a certain point, oh, at a certain point, it'll get so that you can water the entire plant, fertilize it as necessary, and you don't have to worry about too much water going to waste. Additionally, this mulch, I forgot to mention, this pseudo mulch, we'll call it that, helps stop pot contraction, where, a plant has been in a pot so long it has so many roots that it pulls the soil away from the walls. This helps stop the water run through, helps stop the contraction. So there's that. Now, lastly, and probably the most important thing, and I can't say this enough. Basil plants do not tolerate cold. There's only one plant that I know of in the mint family that's called a basil that comes back from its roots in zone 8B. And yes, the test gardens, due to the USDA's information, have moved our zone to 8B now. Talking about the USDA zones is a whole nother problem, but let me just point out USDA zones, why that's bad, this is a sidetrack, is because USDA hardiness zones only refer to the amount of cold you get, not the amount of heat you get. We're getting less cold, which means we're getting more heat. This is a problem for the test gardens. It means we're going to have to water more. It means we're going to have to rely on more irrigation methods and tricks. This stuff may save me a lot of trouble in the future. But anyway, I believe that covers basil in detail, specifically Cardinal. So if you have any questions about this basil, please leave a comment. If you like this video, please hit like. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And the forage blog is up. The Wild Harvest Tour is going to happen not this weekend, but the weekend after next, so at the end of May. So we may have more plants to talk about from that. So stay tuned. Check us out. If you have any questions, put them up there. And as always, folks, keep them growing. And thanks for watching.